All right, so today we're with John, or better known as ReSale, it's Rabbit at ReSaleRabbit.com. So I know a little bit about you. The reason why I know you is because you started the is Reddit a forum on flipping. I guess a couple of months now, I've been going there every morning, and I either answer a couple of questions or jump into the conversation or read. And it's interesting to me because it's a good mix of like Amazon people and eBay people. And, you know, I don't do Amazon, but I'm always interested in it. And I'm actually feeling like I'm learning stuff from it. So thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I do want to correct you on one thing. I didn't actually start the subreddit. I just joined in very early, and they made me a mod. It was actually Joe Polito that started it.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I didn't know that. Cool. Yeah, so it's a good community of people. I feel like, did you think that group skews kind of younger? I feel like there's like a lot of college kids on there, but I could be wrong.
There are a lot of younger people, but there are older people on there too, ranging from 30s and 40s all the way. I've talked to a couple of people in their 60s and 70s in there, so there's a wide range.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because there's a lot of conversations about like video games and stuff like that. So, but it's good to see everything sells. Let's go ahead and get started here. So like I told you, I've listened to a couple of interviews if you already did, so I don't want to kind of rehash stuff. But just for people that don't know you, what's interesting about your story for me is that you're a young guy and you decided to travel. You're on the road, you bought a van, and you go around just wherever you want to go, I guess, and you buy things at thrift stores and yard sales, and you send them into Amazon FBA, and that's how you make a living and have your adventures. So is that correct?
That's correct.
So can you paint people a picture? So if we were to see you, what do you look like? I mean, so what kind of van is it? Like, you know?
I have a 2006 Ford Freestar, older blue van. It's a little dented and dinged up from all the miles, but I cruise around the country in that. I've learned to not shave, so I'm growing a pretty scraggly beard, but I keep it trimmed once in a while. I used to actually look very Amish, so I keep it trimmed a little bit more now. But yeah, the van is usually packed to the rafters and weighted down.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, we love to talk to people and then walk through its process. So it'll be interesting to get into the details. But so your deal is that you're from Wisconsin originally, and you go back there every now and again, or is that not at your home anymore?
I still consider Green Bay my home. I've only been there like 2 or 3 times in the last year. I've been on the road a majority of the year, but I still consider it my home. I've got a storage unit full of furniture. I had a 3-bedroom house that I have all packed up there. So
that's interesting. So would you feel like this part of your life right now is kind of just, you're kind of like a hobo? I mean, are you just kind of going where you want to go? I mean, I know I've had those periods in my life. They were good years.
Well, technically I am homeless, I guess you could say. I'm living out of hotels all across the country. I don't really plan out my trips. I just kind of go wherever. There are days where I'll just turn off the GPS and, you know, take a random highway and go to whatever the next town happens to be.
I'm so excited talking to you about this because if I'm in my 20s, how old are you?
I turned 24 in 3 days.
I can't imagine. So if I was 24 years old and had the ability to make a living by just sending things into Amazon, it would be a dream come true. Like, I'm really surprised that you haven't started a movement of other people doing this. It just sounds exciting.
There are a lot of people doing this now. I talked to, in the last week, I've probably talked to 4 or 5 people who have either started or are planning on starting a trip, you know, traveling around thrifting. Wow. Most people have, you know, jobs and families and responsibilities, so they can't be on the road for an entire year. But, you know, a week or 2 on the road, a lot of people are doing that.
Because you're at that age where it's all about adventuring and experiencing, you know, like it's like the perfect age to do exactly what you're doing, you know. So when you're driving around, let's kind of sketch it out. So how much are you spending on fuel every month or every week? Like, let's talk about your expenses.
I'm spending too much on fuel.
Right.
My last vehicle got like 50 miles to the gallon, and now I'm down to 25 with the van. So it's been almost a year in the van, and I'm still trying to get used to it. But I would say it really depends how much I'm traveling that week. If I'm on the East Coast, there are a lot of nearby cities, so I'm not doing a lot of driving. Whereas the West Coast, it might be 8 hours to the next town where I'm going through 2 or 3 tanks of gas. So that really varies.
So, and then so maybe, a couple $100, maybe.
I'd say $200 or $300 a week on average on fuel. There are some weeks where I might spend 500. There are some weeks where I spend under 100.
Yep. And then if you're staying in it's motels mainly, how much you think you're spending? I mean, this can be kind of pricey, like at $50 a night, right?
Well, I use an app called Hotwire where I can book hotels very inexpensively. I would say I average between $40 and $50 with taxes and everything per night. There are some nights where I get insanely cheap hotels. There are other nights where it's just tough to find one under 70, but on average about 40 or 50.
Got it. So you're spending maybe $300 or $400 a week on hotel.
Yep. I think I counted it out to be about $1,300 to $1,500 a month.
Got it. So we're up to about $1,800 on those expenses. And then food, are you like going to grocery stores and making sandwiches, or are you eating out at most meals?
I'm eating out most meals, but I'm not too picky. I like the dollar menu at McDonald's, and Taco Bell has some pretty cheap food. But when I'm in a lot of cities, I'm a foodie. I love trying new foods. So usually every city has that one restaurant that I need to try where I end up spending $30 or $40.
So I guess we're looking at maybe like $2,200 a month is kind of a minimum burn rate to kind of be on the adventure.
I would say that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I get paid from Amazon every 2 weeks, every 14 days. So I kind of plan it out by pay periods rather than months. And I usually like to have about $2,000 just for traveling and living expenses set aside every pay period. I don't use it all, but it's nice to have the extra just in case.
Now, let's say, so the way that you're funding this is Amazon. And for those people who don't know you, you have a YouTube, where you show how you buy and you explain the whole thing, and it's great. And so you're going to Savers and Goodwill and Salvation Army, and you're finding mainly, it seems like video games and wireless routers, like electronics seem to be popular. Because I guess that's what Amazon likes, right?
Amazon likes just about everything, but it seems to be the best things to find at thrift stores are video games, electronics, textbooks, and items that are still new in the box, whether it's toys or other electronics or household items and whatnot.
And then when you get those things, you take them back to the hotel room, and you talked about like getting a luggage cart from the motel, and you wheel it into your room. And are you shipping them every day?
No, it takes too much time to ship every day. I usually ship about once or twice a week.
And then the cool thing is, once from there, Amazon handles everything, and they just send you money into your account, right?
Exactly. I don't need to do any shipping to the customers. I don't need to answer any customer questions. I don't need to handle returns or anything. It's all very passive once the inventory gets sent in.
Just so people understand, what kind of inventory do you normally handle? Like a couple hundred items at a time, or you have 1,000 things in your store?
I would say I average between 300 and 500 units per shipment. I sit around 1,500 units in stock on average. It really fluctuates depending on whether I just got a shipment in or not, but 300 to 500 units per shipment is pretty average.
And how quickly do people buy things? Like, are things up for a week? Does it take 6 months?
Most stuff sells really quick. I would say about half of my shipment is sold within 48 hours. Another quarter of it is sold within the next week, and the last quarter is usually longer tail items or items that I purchased to hold for the fourth quarter.
I mean, that really is incredible to hear, because I know that you've sold on eBay too, and I don't know how it was on eBay. It's for you, but on eBay, it's for us. Things just take a while, just mainly because we're just selling like older weird stuff. I mean, it's not a weird thing if something takes 6 months to actually sell. So that's incredible that things sell so quickly for you.
It really depends what you sell. I mean, I sell a lot of in-demand items like video games on Amazon. If I sold the same stuff on eBay, it may not sell quite as quick, but it'll still sell very quick. If I sold a copy of a newer video game, a popular game, let's say Grand Theft Auto 5 on eBay, it would probably sell within a few days, just like it would on Amazon.
When you send something in, do you send it in and don't think of it again, or are you always online adjusting the price, keeping up with fluctuations, that kind of thing?
I will go online usually about once a month and adjust pricing for the most part. Once in a while, if I have a shipment of items that I know really get competitive, I'll check on those more often. In the near future, I will be buying a repricing software that will handle all of that for me. So ideally, I'll only need to go in and watch pricing maybe once every 6 months or so.
So that a software, you give it its boundaries of where it can take a price, and then it just automatically fluctuates?
Mm-hmm. The software that I'm looking into and probably going to be buying is called Reprice It. You give it certain rules where if it drops below a certain percentage that it will not adjust it, or it's actually very intuitive where it will be able to look at average market prices of certain items and be able to price competitively with that. You can also set certain exceptions. If a certain category, a certain SKU, a certain item, I want to hold at a certain price. Like for example, a Nintendo Wii, I'm holding double market value because I know come Christmas time I'll be able to get it. You can set those exceptions. You can also set certain times of the day where it can reprice, so you can find the most competitive times of day to reprice. It's a very intuitive software, and it appears it's really going to increase my sales.
So that's interesting. I mean, that's, again, talking to eBay people, it sounds eBay is much more, it's primitive. It's more like a yard sale. Amazon people seem really into, and it's smart, automation and doing stuff like this. What do you think it's going to be like when everyone has it's repricing software? It's all like it's repricing against each other.
It's really tough to say. I know a lot of people are using repricing software right now, especially the big mega sellers. I know of a person who sells books, and he sells a couple of $1 million a year in books. And he tells me there's some books he'll take a loss on just on fees because it's not worth going in and keeping track of the few that drop to that extent than it is to manage all of the pricing rules. So it really depends on how you run your business and how high your volume is. A repricing software obviously does have its downsides, but I think the upsides outweigh it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just interesting as this stuff gets automated, how it's going to work. And in your videos, you talk a lot about, video games and, again, the wireless as routers, DVD. I think you do a little DVDs, or maybe you did.
A little bit.
Yeah, because those are gated, or it's gated now. Are you mainly looking for and finding the same kind of things again and again, or are you always branching out into a different kind of items?
Well, my bread and butter is video games. About 30% of my yearly sales are video games. So I'm always looking for those just because that's the moneymaker. But I'm looking to find anything that I can make money on. I've been learning a lot about health and beauty items and expanding into that more. A few months ago, I bought a pallet of overstocked shoes, about 225 pairs of shoes. So I'm really expanding my knowledge on different items and what sells and what doesn't to just create added streams of revenue.
So people sell shoes on Amazon, and so that's a gated category, and you just have to break into that?
Yes, you need to apply to Amazon to get ungated in shoes. There are several categories that are gated like that. But once you're approved, you're fine to sell shoes as much as you want. The thing about Amazon, though, is you cannot sell used shoes or clothing. They have to be brand new.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about eBay is it's kind of like a Mad Max kind of thing. You can sell basically anything. You could sell like an old tooth if you wanted to, and no one would care.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see the attraction to Amazon if you're have that eye for that kind of stuff.
I think the biggest difference between eBay and Amazon is eBay is like running a flea market booth where Amazon is like running a store. You can really scale up a lot more with Amazon. Now, it doesn't discount eBay in any way. There's a lot that eBay has that Amazon doesn't. but eBay really limits you as far as how much you can scale.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's harder to get big on eBay because of the listing. That's a bottleneck. There's really, you can try and be as efficient as possible, but ultimately you have to always list each item, unlike Amazon. I guess the thing about Amazon though is yeah, it limits you because it really tends towards its newer items. Although you can do like old books, you can do used items, but they have to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, for the most part. They just really, Amazon's only guideline for used items is they need to be fully functional and operational. You can't sell a phone with a broken screen, but if the phone is beat up and looks like it's been run over by a car, but it's still fully functional, it's perfectly fine to sell.
Now, when did you sell? Because I'm assuming since you're finding a lot of your stuff at thrift stores, not everything is brand. It's new in the box. Did you find when you sell used items that did you get things sent back a lot or not really?
Yes and no. My return rate averages about somewhere between 5 and 10%, depending on the category. I found that it really varies between what it is. You get a lot of buyer's remorse on new items, and then on used items, you got a lot of items that were damaged in shipping because they're not packed in that retail box.
Right.
It's really a horse apiece. I prefer used over new simply because the value remains once it's been used and returned. Whereas a new item, if it's been used and returned, I now need to sell it used, which could be half its value.
So we've kind of sketched out a little bit of its process, and we said earlier, your burn rates, maybe $2,500 a month to, have this cool, crazy adventure. On your website, you said that you're going to sell, and correct me if I'm wrong, $250,000 of stuff this year. Is that correct?
That's my goal. It's a big goal. I always set my goals high. At the rate I'm going, it is still very possible and plausible to happen. I am about to hit 90,000 in sales so far this year. So it's with the fourth quarter coming up, very well possible.
Now, when you say a number like that, are we saying that it's gross sale? Is that correct? Like it's before fees and all that?
That is after fees, but before cost of goods.
Okay. So how much do you think you'll actually pull in after all your expenses?
My cost is typically on average about 20%. So if I'm, for the sake of math, pulling in 200,000 in sales after fees, I should walk away with about 160,000 profit.
That's incredible. Just selling, video games and electronics. That's incredible. And then if your burn rate's only, let's say $30,000, you're going to end up with $100K.
Absolutely. The margins are amazing at thrift stores. I picked up in Dayton, Ohio the other day. It's a school item. It looks like a pen, but can actually highlight things in a textbook and it will translate it for you. I paid $4 for this, and used after fees, I'll get $142 for it. And based on the sales rank, it should sell the second it checks in.
I feel like there needs to be like a needle scratching, I mean, so you're going to pull in $100K. So what do you do? It's with $100,000. I mean, obviously you got to pay taxes on that, but with the profit, are you saving it? Are you paying off debt? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I have no debt. That's been a thing I've always been adamant about, having no debt, no credit cards, no loans or anything. Most of it goes into a personal savings account where I'm just saving for retirement or to buy a house one day. But I put a lot of it into a business savings account to scale up my business. What I'd like to do in the future, and how far down the road, it really depends, is to actually have a brick and mortar store, almost like a pawn shop, but where we only purchase, we don't sell. That way I can have people walking in to sell me their stuff, which I would send into FBA. Yeah,
there's a guy who has a YouTube channel too. Craigslist, is it Craigslist Hunter?
Yep, I've actually been to his store.
Yeah, so he's in Chicago, and I don't know if that's exactly how he operates, but that's what it seems like.
Well, his store, he sells in the store also. He runs just like a pawn shop minus the loans.
Right.
It's a huge store in Crystal Lake, west of Chicago, and he has a ton of stuff that really isn't good for Amazon or eBay in there that seems to be selling really well locally in his brick and mortar. And then he does FBA, he does eBay. So he's a smart guy. I follow his videos pretty attentively.
And do you think that the way you've done this business, that this could continue kind of permanently, like a year after year? I mean, I guess nothing's permanent, but.
Well, the business changes every year. A lot of people ask me if it's so easy, why doesn't everyone do it? Well, that's the thing. Everyone does do it, which causes it to change so drastically every year. You just have to learn to adapt with the changes and find new ways that you can bring in additional revenue.
Since the beauty of Amazon FBA is they take care of the storage and shipping, what's the biggest part of the process that you're spending time on?
I would say I spend the most time actually sourcing inventory, going to the thrift stores, pounding the pavement, hitting the garage sales. I spend most of my time doing that. The second most labor-intensive thing is actually sending out the shipments. Usually it'll take me 8 to 12 hours for one large shipment. So that's usually a solid day of work.
I mean, I'm glad it's mentioned that because, yeah, you hear, especially people that do FBA, they make it sound like really quick, fast. It's money, there's no work involved. It's kind of passive income. But I feel like even though you aren't having to ship stuff to customers or store it, you're always having to find inventory. And that takes a lot of time,
The benefit of FBA rather than merchant fulfilling your items is it takes about the same amount of time to ship 400 units to an Amazon warehouse than it does to ship 400 units to a customer or to 400 customers. The difference is you get to do it kind of at your own schedule. When you're seller fulfilling, when something sells, you have to ship today. Whereas right now I can take all day Sunday and watch football and do this interview, and I don't need to worry about shipping anything.
Yeah, I think that's what I tell people. If I have any friends that are interested enough in asking me about what I do, I tell them it's not like it's easy or that there's no work involved. There's a lot of work involved. But the reason why I love it is that I can time shift, I'm not stuck to a schedule. It's like I heard you say in other interviews, you can work 4 days really, really hard, and then you can take 4 days off, it doesn't really, and that day could be a Tuesday and Wednesday, it could be a Saturday, rather than other jobs I've had where, I'm kind of stuck on a schedule.
Exactly. And with a regular job, if you are feeling a little sick, not so sick where you can't take a day off, but sick enough where you really aren't feeling good that day, you still have to go to work. But for me, even if it's just, the sniffles, I can take the day off if I want.
I'll do it's better. If there's a day where I'm just not feeling it, it's like I'm just not into it. And it's like 2:00, I can go watch a movie and it's all good,
Exactly.
And then I get energized and maybe I'll come home and work in the evening,
Yeah, I was up until 4 a.m. last night. I watched 3 different movies just because I can. I haven't watched much TV lately. And, if I had an actual job, there aren't many nights where I can be up until 4 a.m.
Now, do you get lonely on the road, or is part of it you're always meeting people and hanging out with other people online?
When I first started doing this on the road, it did get very lonely. I had to kind of make friends as I went, sit in a bar or a restaurant and just talk to other people staying in the hotel and whatnot. But now that I've built a YouTube presence, I have the opportunity to pretty much meet with someone new in every major city I go, which is there's a lot of value in that, just because when you're on the road for 10 months of the year, it does get lonely if you don't have people to meet up with and talk to.
Again, most of my friends, if they ask about what we do, their eyes glaze over real quick. And then those that do get interested, they just can't imagine that would be interesting. So what is exciting to you about just going from town to town, going to, thrift store after a thrift store? I mean, it must still be exciting. It's for you, right?
Absolutely. I love traveling. That's why I decided to take my business on the road. you could run this business from one town and do just as well, if not better, than I'm doing. But it's just, the ability to travel around the country and have that freedom to go sightseeing and see so many different places, that just trumps everything. That is, I could be making 30 grand a year and I'd be doing the same thing I'm doing right now.
I honestly, I still can't get over the number that we just talked about, that how much it's making, and mainly because I can believe it, because we do similar kind of numbers too, but we're like in a home and we have like storage and it feels like a business. It's just so great to hear that you're basically it sounds like you're just just traveling around like on a lark, but yet.
Yeah, without FBA, I would not be able to put up these numbers. I did a trip just merchant fulfilling and doing eBay and seller fulfilling on Amazon, and I wasn't putting up a fraction of these numbers just because of the limit of space in the van and the amount of time that you have to ship things to customers and everything. FBA is really the stepping stone that made this what it is.
It makes me feel like a dummy sometimes, because I'm just like, I love eBay. It's like, I don't want to have to learn about how to do Amazon, but I'm just like, come on, like, it's amazing hearing it's your story, So let's talk about eBay though, because it's interesting. You were first on eBay and you were doing what you're doing now, and you would sell things from the road, but then it didn't work for you anymore because of defects. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just defects. I mean, being on the road is very difficult to have to ship the stuff yourself. If something sells and I'm at a hotel that doesn't really have the best internet, I'm kind of screwed and need to maybe use the business center or find a library or something to ship it. And then there's also, the storage is very difficult in a vehicle. When I was shipping the stuff myself, there were many times where I sold something small and I would spend 20 minutes looking and still couldn't find it in the van. So I'd have to order it on Amazon and ship it to the buyer, or order it from another eBay seller and ship it to the buyer, just so they get the product within the appropriate amount of time. And it just became very problematic. So I think FBA is a huge value for being on the road, especially with storage space.
Yeah. And so when you, why don't you say if you go to 10 at thrift stores, are you always finding something to send into FBA at every single thrift store?
Most of the time, yes. There are still times where I walk out with nothing, and if you watch my videos, you see I'm pretty straightforward about it. I'll film myself walking out of the thrift store and say, "Hey, I didn't find anything here." It happens. And then there are a lot of thrift stores where I might only find a single item where I'm making $15. The thrift stores where I'm walking out with $300-400 in profit, those are few and far in between. But I'm usually, as I grow my knowledge base, walking out with something at just about every thrift store now.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I think that's my issue too, is when I've thought about doing FBA and I walk into where we normally go and scavenge, I just don't see, the items that Amazon seems to like, I mean, I know they don't have to be new, but they have to be more contemporary. It's products like electronics and, a lot of places we scavenge. That's a reason why we sell on eBay. It's like vintage stuff, older stuff, used clothing, shoes, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. And once you open your eyes to FBA and what sells and expand your knowledge, you really start finding more and more items. When I first started, and even a year ago, I was walking out of a lot more stores with nothing than I am now. It just comes down to kind of what you can spot and how much product knowledge you have.
I mean, I think what attracts me to you as well is that you are kind of scavenging, like all of us who probably hear this podcast. We're more eBay people, so scavenging the older stuff. If you're going to the places that we go to, instead of going to a retail stores and doing the retail arbitrage, which a lot of Amazon people seem to, kind of tend towards.
Mm-hmm. The thing I don't like, there are two things I really don't like about retail arbitrage. The first is the margins are slim. I mentioned the $4 item I'm selling for $140. That's pretty common for me, and you will never find that at a retail store. Typically, you're very happy if you double your money after fees. A lot of times you're making 50% ROI. That doesn't happen at thrift stores. The margins are just so much higher.
Yeah.
And the other major factor is with retail arbitrage, if you find, say, a $10 item that you can sell for 20 at Target, every other Target in the country has it. So every other person who's doing an RA is probably going to find it, and the price will just drop.
And also, I don't know about you, but nothing would make me more bored than walking around a Walmart scanning, Barbie dolls or whatever. It's just, I can't. I like getting dirty, getting in the junk. That's
I will say this. I do a little bit of retail arbitrage, not much. I would say less than 1% of my sales are retail arbitrage. But, when I do go out and I find that item at Walmart, it is quite a rush, just knowing that it's not something that you're digging for on the bottom of a bin at a thrift store. It's something at a retail store that anyone can find.
Yeah.
It is a rush, but, it's not as fun overall as thrifting.
Well, why don't we just say it's not fun for me? I cannot discredit it at all. Seems like people do very well doing that. So, it's not, it's got to be one way or the other. It's just my personal taste.
I was going to say, I think you can incorporate both into your business. There's no reason you need to be one or the other.
I like that. A man of doing both things. What was interesting to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong again. So before this, if you did have a job, you were working at a car dealership, is that correct?
Yes, I was the director of digital media marketing for a franchise of 4 dealerships in the Southeast. They were pretty large dealerships. One of our stores was actually one of the oldest dealerships still in operation. I had a team of people working under me. I had a company car that it was literally a brand new car off the lot. Every couple of weeks they'd give me a car that had 2 miles on it. I had a company card that was for gas. I never had to purchase a drop of gasoline while I was with the company. I had a cushy air-conditioned office and no supervisor. The only people I answered to were the board of directors. I could have sat there the rest of my life, retired young, and had a very cushy life, but I left that job to sell on eBay.
And what motivated you to do that? You just got bored?
It wasn't that I was bored. It was the hours. I was putting in 40 hours a week. I was there Monday through Friday, and if I did take a day off, I was still answering emails, and I was still kind of working just remotely. I was on the side buying storage units at auction, selling at the flea market, and eventually selling a little bit on eBay, and I kind of saw potential in that. And I told myself, if I can come to at least 50% of my income in the car business doing this resale stuff, I'll leave my job and, exchange the financial aspect for the actual freedom to have time to myself.
Did any part of that work that you did there inform you in what you're doing now, or is it totally different?
It's pretty different. The only thing that I really learned in the car business that I carried to my business with me was learning about new product lines. And I've mentioned this before in other interviews, so I'll keep it quick. But when I was in the car business, we had to learn every vehicle that you could imagine, both ours and our competitors, the different models, the different trim levels and packages that come with it. And so I was told to spend 15 minutes a day learning a new car. So every day I would spend 15 minutes reading up on a different car. And I carry that with me on a different niche or a different product. Every morning I'm looking at my phone, spending 15 minutes learning something new about something that I don't know about yet.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that story, and I think it's a great story. And it's something that we tell new people that come to our blog, and they're like, how do you know what to sell? And I just tell people, if you start doing something long enough, and every day we're going out, finding things, I'm always picking up things I've never seen it's before, because that's what makes this, I guess it's this job exciting,
Mm-hmm.
And I bring it home and I research it. And then suddenly I now learn about a new kind of item, and I learn about the history and the manufacturing, and it's all interesting. And if you do that day after day, it doesn't take long, a year or two, and you're kind of more of an expert on things than 99% of people on the planet.
And when you find something unique, you can look at different variations and whatnot. A couple of years ago, I found a unique keyboard that I sold for $90 used, and this thing is from the 80s. So I decided to start researching valuable keyboards, and I found a whole new niche right there. Items that I may not find often, but maybe once a week I'm finding a $100 or $50 keyboard for $3 in a thrift store.
something you've talked about, I mean, it seems like in your videos, it's mainly about going to thrift stores, but you've mentioned in other places about you've done storage auctions, where you buy out whole storage auctions, and you've talked about going on Craigslist and buying out like a bunch of video games. And I mean, is all that stuff every once in a while, or that's an active part of its process?
Oh, no, it's active. Thrift stores, I would say, is my main source because I can hit 10 or 12 of them in a day with a lot less effort than Craigslist or whatnot. But I'm still on Craigslist every day looking for certain search keywords that I always check. Every time I'm in a new city or heading to a new city, I'm checking Craigslist. I also check OfferUp, which is an app kind of like Craigslist. I am going to pawn shops. I'm going to flea markets. I really don't do storage auctions anymore just because it's very labor intensive, and most of the stuff is best for flea markets or a thrift store or Craigslist as far as sales channels. But I still have a lot of different streams where I find inventory.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because it seems like there are some things where they wouldn't be really good for selling things on Amazon because it is just a lot of more junk,
When I was doing storage units, my bread and butter was furniture and appliances that I would sell on Craigslist. That's where I made my money. Going to the flea market, that was getting rid of the bric-a-brac and the Tupperware and whatnot, just trying to make a couple of bucks, and I would donate whatever was left after the weekend at the flea market. It was all the Craigslist, the big heavy stuff. Well, that was the money maker in storage units.
Now, I got a couple of kind of random, unconnected questions. So number one is, in your van, why is it so crowded in there if you're mailing everything into Amazon FBA?
I find a lot of stuff. I can go to one thrift store and fill up half of the back of the van sometimes.
Wow.
It fills up fast. I was in Lexington, Kentucky a week and a half ago, and I found 152 sets of Mario Kart wheels for the Nintendo Wii. That took up just about the entire back of the van, just on that one type of item. It fills up fast.
Got it. And then so basically, you then mail stuff into Amazon when things just it's crowded.
Pretty much. I like to do at least once or twice a week, whether it's crowded or not. But usually I'm shipping it out more just because it fills up too fast.
And why don't you sleep inside of that van? It's make a little bed and,
Well, first of all, there's just no room. I would not fit in there with all the merchandise. But the main reason is because I'm too spoiled. I need to have a soft bed, a hot shower, room service, the whole works.
Good.
I couldn't do it.
Good for you. Yeah. Treat yourself right.
Just picture this. Imagine spending a year living in a van. I know Chris Farley had a joke about that, and it didn't sound pleasant then, and it doesn't sound pleasant now. I mean, I live in these hotels. This is my home. This isn't 3 days that I'm out on the road. This is where I live. It's my home.
I think back to when I was at your age. I mean, I'm not that much older, but it was in a much different time, and I couldn't have done this, and traveling was so much more different. That's why it's just so cool the way you're doing it, because you're making money, you're adventuring, you're meeting people. I mean, that's what it's all about. So the other question was, do your parents wish that you were doing something else, or are they down? It's with the plan.
My mother and I don't really get along that well, and so she kind of sees what I do as a joke and that I'm wasting my time. If she knew how much I was making, she would probably feel differently about that. But most people kind of saw what I was doing as stupid. And when I left my job in the car business, all my friends thought I was losing it or something, just going insane. Some people thought I actually got fired and was just trying to come up with an excuse. Very few people, as far as my friends, know how well I'm doing and how much I'm making. And the ones that do are now seeing why I'm doing it. The ones that don't know how much I'm making, I think they're kind of seeing from all the Facebook posts of me traveling around the country and all the cool stuff that I'm buying for myself. I think they're kind of getting the idea that I'm doing all right. Either that or they think I have 10 credit cards open.
Yeah, no, I mean, trust me, I think these online groups that we're all a part of are important because, yeah, it's hard to talk about this stuff to regular people without it sounding crazy, because it does kind of sound crazy. But once you're in it, that it's just a numbers game, like everyone on this planet needs a certain amount of money to get by, some more than others. And if you can fulfill it one way or another, it's all good.
Hmm.
So I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
So do you think is this kind of what you want to do, at least for a while? I mean, does this feel like a long-term kind of thing for you?
Will I be traveling like this for a while? Probably not. I get burnt out traveling once in a while. In fact, that's why I've been in Nashville for the last couple of months. I didn't know anyone here. I just said, you know what, I'm sick of living in hotels. I'm getting an apartment. So I don't think I'll be traveling for forever, to this extent at least. It'll probably be more commonly like a month-long trip twice a year. But as far as reselling, as far as thrifting, pawn shops and whatnot, selling on Amazon, I foresee that happening until I eventually retire.
I can see, just being on the road full time would get tiring. But yeah, I mean, that's really kind of cool that you've kind of decided this is something that you want to do for a while, and that's good. And when you travel, I mean, I don't know, again, like we just came back we spent a month in Europe, and we were basically scavenging the whole time. It's kind of vacation, but we're going to flea markets and exploring a different country. And we were in Holland, and it was great. I came back with, two big bags full of stuff. So maybe you might want to think about that. Your traveling doesn't have to be only in America.
Absolutely. I'm actually this spring going to be expanding to FBA in Canada, where I'll be sending some of my inventory overseas to Canada to be sold from their warehouses. And once I get that all set up, I've thought about doing a cross-country trip in Canada where I can just send it straight to the Canada FCs instead of sending to the U.S. side, and I can explore more of Canada.
That's interesting. Now, one thing that kind of surprised me was when someone asked you your favorite part of the country to go to, and you said mainly the Southeast, which is cool. I can dig the Southeast. But you said specifically Georgia and Alabama. I think that might surprise a lot of people because most people really don't think of Alabama as being like the prime spot to enjoy in America.
Alabama is such a beautiful state. You've got the Gulf of Mexico on one end, you've got the mountains on the other end, you've got a couple of major cities there, a lot of great college sports. I really enjoy Alabama. It's just such beautiful country out there.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that to insult anyone from those states because we live in the South too. We are it's Virginia, so we're kind of towards that area. But it's interesting. It's interesting that you don't just pick like what other people would say. California, place like that.
I've actually never been to California. It's one of the few states I have not visited, so I can't state an opinion there. But I know a lot of people would say like Miami or New York City or Dallas, which they're great towns to visit, but I don't think I could spend a lot of time there. Too many tourists, too many crowds. I like cities, I like crowds, but I think that's a bit of overkill for me.
Yeah, so, you said earlier how you thought maybe the long-range plan was you would eventually find a brick-and-mortar store and invest in that and run a business. I mean, is that something in the back of your mind? You're trying to find a place that you might want to settle down in and open up this store? Or will it just be going back home to Wisconsin?
I really haven't decided yet. When I open the store, what I will likely be doing is just hiring people to work in it and run it. So I really don't even need to be in the same state as the store. I'm just looking for, as far as the store, a place where I'm most likely to have the best merchandise walk in and be able to pick it up for the best price. And typically that's going to be in a more lower income part of the country, whereas that's really not the area where I'm going to want to be living. So it's really tough to decide. I know when I open it, I'll have to probably be there for a year just to get it all set up and running. But, it's really up in the air. I've never been one to plan ahead that much.
No, I mean, I feel like the old man who's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? But I guess I just imagine if people asked me that when I was 24, I can imagine the things I would tell people. And yeah, it's funny how life, can change. And, maybe you'll meet somebody and that story will totally change.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to wait till I grow up before I decide where I'm going to be when I grow up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know when that happens. I guess I think that only happens when you stop trying to, have fun.
I guess I'm never going to grow up.
Yeah. This may sound crazy, but if you're traveling around and you ever wind up in, it's Virginia, we're in a really beautiful part of the state. I mean, we have an extra place. We have like it's guest house behind our house. You're welcome to stay. I would love if you did that. We go to a couple thrift stores and I could see you actually try and find the stuff that goes into FBA. I feel like if I ever were to make that leap, I can watch videos all day long. I need to see it in person,
I might just have to take you up on that. I was actually just in West Virginia about a week ago in Charleston and Morgantown. I was doing some thrifting.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's not far at all from where we are. So that might be an interesting thing to do. Do some scavenging and send in a...
I hear you guys do a lot of dumpster diving.
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely not as much as some people do, but like when we go into New York, we love to pick in the trash, walk the streets, enjoy the town, but always looking at the curbs where people put out their garbage, because people put out amazing things right on the trash bags,
Yeah, I actually went dumpster diving for the first time about a week ago in Pittsburgh. I'm wearing a nice dress shirt, Italian leather shoes, and khakis, standing inside of a dumpster, and I found the Star Wars trilogy on DVD worth about $60 for free in a dumpster.
You kind of remind me of this other guy that I really love up in it's Montreal. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is it's Martin, and he does a website called garbagefinds.com, and he blogs every week about he only finds stuff in the garbage, and he goes to neighborhoods, and I mean he's hardcore. We just get stuff that we can see that people put right on top of bags. He goes right to the trash bags, and he's got a way to figure out what has garbage and what's, real good stuff. And he'll go through it, and he's pulling out. It's amazing the kind of stuff he pulls out,
I'll have to check him out. I've been watching Tales of Taylor on YouTube.
Huh.
They just started a show on YouTube called Dive Time. The first episode just came out last Friday. But he has a lot of just, raw video from his cell phone of them dumpster diving. They found some great video game scores. A Super Nintendo, a DS, Game Boys, tons of games. It's unbelievable what they find.
Yeah. See, I love stuff like that, I guess that's why, there's different terms that people use for it's this stuff, refill arbitrage, flipping. I love the term scavenging because it's more of a sense of like you're finding the stuff that people think is worthless, and you're scavenging that to find it a new home,
Yeah.
And then I guess my last question is, typically someone like you who's kind of good at what you do and you have a story and you're good on its video, why don't you write ebooks and have a page and start a course and all that stuff?
I like giving out the information for free with my YouTube channel. I know I get a lot of hate for just giving it all away, but I feel like it brings a lot more to people and can really help people a lot more, people who wouldn't go and buy an ebook. I know there are a lot of people who wouldn't spend $5 on an ebook even if they knew it was going to teach them how to do it. So, might as well give it for free.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, it goes back to what we were talking about. There's no wrong or right way to do it. It's just interesting. I really feel that when I watch your videos that you're just kind of doing it because it's fun for you and it's exciting, and that definitely comes through.
I am working on a book right now that should be out by springtime. It's kind of an A to Z guide how to get started with FBA and build a business with it from the thrifting side. And all of the information is in my YouTube videos, but there's so much fluff around it and so many different hauls in it where it would take weeks upon weeks, spending 40 hours a week watching my YouTube videos to find it all. So it's kind of nice for people that do want to just buy a book and have everything in, they can read it over the course of a week and have all the knowledge right there rather than spending months watching YouTube videos. But it's all still going to be free on my YouTube channel.
Well, I really want to thank you for talking to me today, and I will link to your YouTube, which I really enjoy because you have it's Pro, and so people kind of see things from your point of view.
Yeah, I actually used the GoPro for the first time this past week. It was a grand opening of a Savers thrift store, and I got a lot of weird looks with this thing strapped to my head, but I got some good footage of that.
Cool. And and again, thanks for coming on. And I'm dead serious about the invite. If you ever want to come and hang out in the mountains, that's where we are. So it might be an interesting, and I'll show it to you around the Shenandoah Valley.
Certainly, I will definitely have to take you up on that.
All right, I'll see you, John.
All right, thanks for having me.